Hello guys, it is Kit of Theories here, and Riverdale Season 5 is just around the corner now, and as you guys all know, there is so much content in this show. Over the past 4 seasons, we've just been hit and thrown with so many different things that we've got to remember, and I'm pretty sure Season 5, there's probably going to be a lot more that we need to recap. So that's exactly what we are going to do today in this video. Considering Season 5 is just around the corner, we are going to try and recap every single thing that's ever happened in Riverdale in a chronological timeline. So we're not going to go from Season 1, Season 2, to Season 3, to Season 4. We're instead going to add everything into one giant chronological timeline, so we're even going to begin before the show even started. But before we go any further, please make sure that you click that red subscribe button down below and have your notifications turned on so that you get notified every time I make a brand new video. And let's not waste any more time, guys, because there is a lot to get through. Be prepared. So, our story starts off in the 1940s to 1990s. It is said that General Augustus Pickens founded Riverdale in 1941. However, Barnabas B. Blossoms paid the general off to pillage the land which was already occupied by the Utana people. Pickens decided to kill hundreds of people and push all of the Utana people down to the south side of the town, who would later go on to form the Southside Serpents. Barnabas B. Blossom's family opens up the Blossom Maple Farms, where they open up in the syrup industry, making the family just even richer. However, one of the Blossom brothers tries to murder the other one so that they can keep the family fortune, but the other kills him in self-defense. The living brothers changes his last name to Cooper and splits the Blossom family, resulting in a long feud between the families. In the 1970s, Jim Conway finds out the truth about who the Cooper family is and blackmails Lewis Cooper, also known as Betty's grandfather, and Lewis doesn't want the family's history to come out to the light, so he murders Conway and his family so nothing is revealed. However, young Joseph Conway escapes and changes his name to Joseph Spenson. Lewis Cooper becomes known as the Riverdale Reaper, and the other towns gang up to take him down. However, Spenson tells them they've got the wrong man, and Lewis just walks away free. During this time, Forsyth Jones, the first father of F.P. Jones, the second, and grandfather to Jughead Jones, joins Stonewall Prep for a few months due to his brilliance in writing literature. There, he becomes roommates and classmates with Francis Dupont. Him and his classmates form the Literary Society. Forsyth ends up creating the original Baxter Brothers novel, a murder mystery book that will be passed down to generations, with each ghostwriter writing a certain number of books. One of the main characters in the books was Tracy True, created by Jane Dallas, one of the classmates to Forsyth and Francis, and the grandmother of Donna, who we will meet later. Francis Dupont then pays Forsyth $5,000 to basically steal the Baxter Brothers novels from Forsyth, making it seem like Forsyth never wrote any. During this time, patients at the Sisters of Quiet Mercy invent Griffins and Gargoyles, a game to help the patients deal with an illusion known as the Gargoyle King. The nuns find out about the game and use it to control their patients. The Blossom family adopts a young girl called Penelope from the Sisters. However, she is only moved into the family so that she can become a bride for the young Clifford Blossom. Yet, Clifford isn't even the true heir to the Blossom Farms, that is instead his identical twin brother, Claudius. When the brothers turn 15, Clifford warns Claudius about a family curse which sees one of the other brothers killing one another, which of course happened before in the family, which is why we have the Coopers. Because of this, the twins separate and Claudius leaves, leaving Clifford the new heir to Blossom Maple Farm. Around the 1980s, the class of Stonewall Prep's Literary Society is led by Francis Dupont. He creates a ghostwriting competition to select who should take on the mantle of the next writer for the Baxter Brothers novels. The Stonewall Four have to devise the perfect murder. However, to truly show that this was the idea of the perfect murder, they would also have to commit the perfect murder to one of the other classmates. Ryan Allen is the first person to do this, and he kills one of the Stonewall Four to gain control of the Baxter Brothers novels. In the 1990s, Penelope makes a group of new friends who she has to spend attention with, who are all just the main character's parents. Definitely not just a coincidence. These include F.P. Jones, Alice Smith, Fred Jones, Sierra Samuels, and Hermione Gomez. During this time, they copy the Breakfast Club and form the Midnight Club for some reason, and through this, Penelope introduces to the rest of the characters Griffins and Gargoyles. They initially play it as just a way to pass the time, however soon they're breaking into the school at night and dressing up in character to play this messed up board game. On the night of their ascension, they hallucinate by getting high on Fizzle Rocks, a drug. Other characters such as Hiram Lodge, Tom Keller, and a few others show up to the game as well. While this is happening, Alice is pregnant with FP's baby, who will later grow up to be the FBI agent Charles Cooper, so she leaves. The principal then returns to the school and gets poisoned by Penelope. He's later found dead with blue lips, so the Midnight Club decides to go their separate ways, so none of them are caught and they never speak of it again. During this time, Francis Dupont stages the killings of the 3 remaining people of his original literary society who set up the Baxter Brothers novels. To keep the secret that he stole the novels from Forsyth Jones I, he kills Jane Dallas, Charles W. Chickens, and Theodore Weasel. But before he has a chance to kill Forsyth, Weasel warns Forsyth that Dupont is planning to kill him, so he runs away to prevent being killed, leaving 16-year-old F.P. Jones alone. F.P. Jones goes to join the Southside Serpents after his father told him to go to hell. However, as we've just discussed, this was all just an act so that he wasn't killed. Alice then decides to get with Hal Cooper, the Riverdale Reaper Lewis Cooper's son. When it is revealed to Hal that Alice is pregnant, she is sent to the Sisters of Quiet Mercy for a few months, and the child is put up for adoption by the nuns. Back to Stonewall, and during this time, Rupert Chipping is now part of the Stonewall Four. He gains control of the ghostwriter for the Baxter Brothers novel by killing one of his classmates to gain control. This eventually will lead him to madness as he's overwhelmed with grief and guilt. Now let's move on to 2000s to 2017. In 2001, many of the parents from the Midnight Club have children. When Betty and Archie are 4, they meet when they move next to each other and they end up forming a child romance. So much so, in 2nd grade, Betty tutors Archie so they stay in the same class together, and Archie proposes to her, but Betty tells him to wait till they're 18. In 2002, Forsyth Jones I begins to collect evidence that links Dupont to the murders of his classmates. The first signs of Dark Betty begin to appear when she's 9 as she decides to kill her cat Caramel with a rock. FP and Fred co-find Andrew's constructions, however Fred has to fire FP due to FP's life of crime. FP ends up becoming an addict and the Jones family is torn apart. And in 2015, Archie's parents split up and his mum moves to Chicago. Meanwhile, Clifford Blossom has been using Maple Farms as a cover to deal drugs. Of course he has. Penelope tells her children stories of the Sugar Man to protect the twins Jason and Cheryl from their evil father. When Jason is older, him and Polly Cooper get into a relationship with one another, and Jason ends up getting Polly pregnant. The Blossoms and the Coopers try to force the two apart. So Jason and Polly, to get away from it all, try to run away to a place called the Farm, held by a man named Edgar Evanever. To pay for the trip, Jason helps the Southside Serpents with a drug delivery deal. So Jason can thoroughly escape his family. Him and Cheryl go onto Sweetwater River and fake his death, leaving Cheryl to looking like they were out in a boat accident and Jason has drowned. Jason actually escapes to the other side of the river to get to the farm. However, the Serpents are then hired by Cliff and Blossom to abduct Jason when he gets there. This was because Clifford thought all the secrets about the drugs at Blossom Maple Farms could be revealed by Jason. So Clifford decides to shoot his son in the head, which is all caught on camera and later found by Archie and the gang. Spoilers for the end of season 1, I guess. I'm sure you've all seen it. The Serpents then plant the body back into Sweetwater River, so it seems like he actually died in the river, and Polly has no idea about this, and Hal Cooper tells Polly that her and Jason are second cousins, and tries to force her to get an abortion. Polly is sent to the Sisters of Quiet Mercy while she's pregnant. Around the same time, Archie is skipping time with Jughead to have sex with his music teacher Geraldine Grundy. Jughead begins writing a book about the town and Jason's death, and then the show begins. Finally! That took a while just to get up to episode 1. 2017 to 2018. The main characters are now in sophomore year. Hermione Lodge and her daughter Veronica Lodge decide to move back to her hometown of Riverdale, where Veronica meets Betty and Archie. Veronica begins to like Archie, but Betty also likes Archie, and this would just be the long beginning of the many different love triangles in this show. Jason's body is found in Sweetwater River with a gunshot wound, so an investigation begins into his murder. Archie worries that him and Miss Grundy might be found out, but Alice Cooper finds out anyway and blackmails Miss Grundy to leave town. But it's okay, because Archie seems to get over Miss Grundy quite quickly, as very soon he's dating one of the Pussycats. And speaking of the Pussycats, throughout the show, especially the first 2 seasons, they basically have on-off appearances whenever they're doing one of their shows. We then see the next glimpses of Dark Betty, the dark version of Betty that occasionally can come out and was last seen when Betty killed her cat with a rock. She almost tries to drown someone in a hot tub to find out that Polly and Jason were together, and Polly is now pregnant and the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. Betty tells Polly that Jason is dead, and Polly now helps the gang to find more clues. FP is then related to the murder, so is jailed, but the gang carry on looking and find Jason's jacket, which has video evidence that the killer was Clifford Blossom. The police try to arrest Clifford, however they find him dead after being hung from a rope. It looks like a suicide, however it was actually just Penelope who hung Clifford when she found out that he killed her son. Cheryl then tries to drown herself since her family has basically become pretty messed up, and Archie punches through some ice to save her. The Blossom house is then burned down and everyone begins hating on Penelope. So she does what a normal person would do. She teams up with Hal Cooper, a descendant of the Riverdale Reaper, and creates the Black Hood, a person who storms the town, killing people who have helped the town thrive as a revenge against Riverdale. Black Hood's first victim is Fred Andrews, who was shot at the end of Season 1 in Pops. Archie is there and manages to save him. He also kills Miss Grundy for having sex with Archie, and tries to kill Moose and Mitch for taking Jingle Jangle, the new town drug, because of course, there's a new drug. So Archie decides to form the Red Circle, a vigilante group wearing red masks who hunt down the Black Hood. This group is disbanded, but Archie still wants revenge for his father's almost fatal death. While this is happening, Veronica's dad, Hiram Lodge, is released from prison and comes to Riverdale to start yet another drug business in the town. Seriously, this town's got a problem. Archie decides to become close with Hiram so he can catch the Black Hood himself. In the south side of the town at this point, since FP is in prison, Jughead is living with a foster family and attending Southside High. Here he meets Tony Topaz, and she's teaching him the ways of gang life. They have a brief get-together till Tony gets together with Cheryl, and they have a few disagreements over time, but basically stay strong together throughout the rest of the show. Because of this, Cheryl is sent to conversion therapy at the Sisters of Quiet Mercy by Penelope Blossom. Tony and Veronica manage to break Cheryl out, and there's a musical episode which, to be honest, I think it would be best if we just skipped it. FP is then released from prison and retakes control of the Serpents. While this is happening, Hiram schemes to take down Southside High and replace it with a secure prison, which is also where he's going to hide his dodgy drug business. Hiram then sends the gang to a lake house. It's all very nice, but then burglars break in and one of Hiram's henchmen comes in to help them escape. The henchman kills one of the burglars, and that'll become important later on. Once they return back to Riverdale, the Black Hood tries to get Betty to join him by threatening Betty's family, or his own family, I guess. There's a few more big death scenes that happen with forgettable characters, and the town freaks out as usual. Polly then returns to the Cooper family after giving birth at the farm to Jason's two twins. However, Polly seems extremely obsessed by the farm that Alice and Betty try to track down Alice's long-lost son, Charles. They find Chick, a man who is impersonating Charles, and ends up going to live at the Cooper's house for a little while. Finally, they realise he isn't the real Charles, and believe Chick actually killed Charles. However, that isn't true either, as it's later revealed that the real Charles is still alive, but is in a romantic relationship with Chip, the guy who's the guy who has just said he killed him, and the guy who's also impersonating him. It's a bit confusing. However, Betty doesn't know anything about that, so she just gives Chick away to the Black Hood so he can be killed for his crimes. But Chick makes a deal with the Black Hood to spare his life, and he goes off to Penelope Blossom, but more on that later. Betty finally realises that her dad is becoming absent, and so she suspects he is the Black Hood. Finally, Betty, honestly, it took you forever. Hal eventually reveals to the family that he is the Black Hood, and the police arrive and arrest him. The end of Season 2 now, the Black Hood is in jail, Jughead becomes the new leader of the Serpent, Cheryl joins the gang with Tony, Hermione becomes the new mayor of Riverdale, and then Archie is arrested, and to be honest, a very anticlimactic ending to this season, considering before we had Fred being shot by the Black Hood, this time it's just, oh, Archie's being arrested. Turns out Hiram had Archie arrested for the murder of Cassidy Bullock. That was the burglar who Hiram's own henchman shot at the lake house, but instead Archie has been framed for it. Hiram does this to get back at Veronica for putting Archie before the rest of the family. Now we move on to 2018 to 2019, junior year, or in other words, Season 3. While everything has been going on, let's return back to the farm, the place where Polly has been living. It is run by Edgar Evernever, who hypnotizes his patients into seeing dead loved ones, and then he harvests their organs to sell them on the black market. It's just another strange thing that's happening in this town. Alice Cooper is then contacted by her long-lost son, Charles, who is still alive and doing an investigation into the farm. That's the real Charles, not the fake Chick who's currently plotting with Penelope Blossom. However, Betty doesn't know about this and just thinks Alice has joined the farm with Polly to basically, well, go mad. While this is happening over the summer, many court trials are happening to try and get Archie released, but he is sent for 2 years to the detention centre. During this time, Archie makes friends with his roommate Mad Dog, and the leader of the centre decides to force Archie to take part in an illegal underground boxing event where lots of Hiram's rich friends bet on which criminal will win. With all of this and the cringe-worthy cheerleader scene outside, eventually Archie's friends finally break Archie out of prison and Veronica proves his innocence. Archie and Jughead then leave town for a bit just to clear some of the air. During this time, Veronica also opens a speakeasy underneath Pop's La Bonne Nuit with Reggie, where they eventually hook up from time to time across the year till they call it quits. Also, the Serpents begin dealing Fizzle Rocks, and Tony and Cheryl throughout the season become slightly annoyed with the Serpents' male dominance, so they set up a girl gang group called the Pretty Poisons, who guard La Bonne Nuit. And to be honest, that's about it with La Bonne Nuit. Like, nothing much else happens with it, apart from it's the main destination for the gang to go to when they need someone's attention, but it's just sort of there. However, a much more important place the gang finds is Dilton Doyley's bunker underneath the woods. While everyone has been recovering from the Black Hood days and dealing with the Archie situation, Penelope Blossom officially makes Chick into a Blossom by dyeing his hair red, and she dresses him up as the Gargoyle King, the enemy from the board game they played as kids. The board game is reintroduced into society and people become obsessed with it as before in the town. This leads to the death of Dilton Doyley and Ben Button after they were playing the game where they worshipped Ethel, who was their princess in the bunker, and Jughead and Betty try to find out who the Gargoyle King is. Later on, this bunker is then just from now on used as a refuge place for characters to have sex with each other, but more on that later. The Gargoyle King tries to attack Betty in her own house, and she doesn't want to move to the farm, so Alice takes her to, you guessed it, the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. Jeez, does every child go to this place? Betty realises that the nuns are feeding the patients Fizzle Rocks, and everyone is yet again obsessing over griffins and gargoyles. Betty manages to get every patient to escape. However, the Fizzle Rocks from Hiram's businesses are now in the water supply, which causes many people from all over the town to hallucinate. Hiram gets the mayor of Riverdale, Hermione Lodge, to quarantine Riverdale, which I'm sure we all know how that feels, until Hiram can fix the problem. And during this time, Archie gets attacked by a live bear. This show really gets unrealistic at times. He becomes stronger and goes back to Riverdale for revenge on Hiram. Betty also tries to get the nuns to testify against Hiram, yet they all get poisoned with blue lips. Then Hermione hires FP to shoot her husband Hiram and appoints him town sheriff. Hiram and Archie sort of make up in the hospital, then it's musical time yet again, and as last time, let's skip over that. A crash then later happens near the prison, which allows Hal Cooper to escape and retake on the mantle of the Black Hood. The Black Hood tries to kill Betty on her prom night, so she escapes to the farm where Kevin, Tony, Cheryl and a few others from the town have also joined because they actually believe the farm is good. Betty finds out that the farm has been drugging and stealing people's organs. Cheryl manages to escape and comes back to try and help Tony and the others. Betty is then about to have her organs taken out until Penelope Blossom decides she's not going to have that, and she takes Betty away back to hers to have a creepy dinner with the main four. Penelope basically tells them every single evil thing she's done since Jason's death, including the Gargoyle King and the Black Hood. She then makes them complete one final quest and win griffins and gargoyles. This includes them spending a night in the woods where they have to drink poison, fight a man-bear, confront the Gargoyle King, and then confront the Black Hood. Penelope kills the Black Hood after Betty couldn't, and she is about to kill our main gang until Cheryl and Tony, along with the Serpents and the Pretty Poisons, come and save them. Penelope escapes, Hermione and Hiram are arrested for their many crimes, and the gang promise to just have a normal year. Which they kind of do for the most half of the next season. But yeah, that's the end of season 3. Next we have 2019 to 2020, senior year. On the 4th of July, Fred Andrews is killed in the show due to Luke Perry's death in real life. He died in the show due to being run over by a reckless driver. Archie finds the man who killed his father and forgives him, and for the next year just tries to find something that could make his father proud. Archie's mother then comes and lives with Archie for the rest of the year. To honour Fred, Archie and Mad Dog open up a gym for disadvantaged kids. However, Dodger has been using these kids as minions. Archie then tries to take down Dodger, as he always tries to do in these sort of situations. It's then a new year for Riverdale High, and they get a new head teacher called Mr. Honey. He doesn't really do much in this season until the very end, and really is only there to make the other characters who are not the main four relevant. Oh, and the parents of the main characters all gang up on him at one point in the season. Meanwhile, Rupert Chipping has been recruiting Moose Mason and Jughead Jones to join Stonewall Prep for their senior year, as he needed them to be the next victims, but more on that later. Jughead has a few up and downs as to whether to attend, but he eventually is persuaded to attend Stonewall Prep, a boarding school for smart English students, where he meets Brett, Donna, Joan, and Jonathan, who are all part of the present-day literary group ran by Rupert Chipping. Charles, Betty, and Alice are now still working together to take down the newly relocated farm. Alice kills Edgar Evernever, and they save all of the patients at the farm. Betty and Kevin then join Charles's new FBI program. While this is happening, Veronica's long-lost sister comes to town and gets Hiram freed from prison. Hiram runs for mayor, and of course he wins, and begins a rum business to go head-to-head with Veronica and Cheryl's new rum business, because yes, they open a rum business for some reason, and to do this they use some of the Blossom Maple to create it. And then, while all this is happening, every house at Riverdale receives a VHS tape with an exact recording of the outside of their own house, and these keep on popping up throughout the season, but really don't get looked at all until later on. However, with each new VHS tape, the camera footage gets closer to the house. And while this is all going on, the other characters are really struggling to stay on screen. So Kevin joins a tickling business where him and the other guys from Riverdale High record themselves tickling for an evil guy. However, Principal Honey is not pleased with this, as you can guess, and he shuts them down. And to keep Cheryl and Tony on screen, something even weirder than tickling videos, and you thought it couldn't get any weirder, they do something even weirder for Halloween. A Jason doll appears in the Blossom home and begins haunting Cheryl and Tony, and the same doll stays on screen for quite a few too many episodes, I think. But speaking of Halloween, Jughead is drugged by the Stonies and placed in a coffin for one whole day. When he's released, he's introduced to Quill and Skull, a secret society with Brett and Donna, and basically everyone else who's in Jughead's class. However, when Jughead eventually returns back to his room, Moose had mysteriously vanished. However, it is later revealed that Chipping recruited Moose to the army so Moose wouldn't be murdered by the literary group, but again, more on that later. By this point, Chipping had written 4 Baxter Brothers books, and the guilt of killing to gain them was just way too much for him, so he decides to jump out of a window and commit suicide. Francis Dupont then takes over the class and introduces the Baxter Brothers competition to the current group, where to gain the contract they would need to write the perfect murder. Little did Jughead know though, they had to also create the perfect murder to prove they could write it. And of course, this is what led Chipping to suicide, so the Stonies team up and try and take down Jughead. Inspired by the Baxter Brothers novels, Jughead manages to track down his grandfather. He finds out that the original book was written by his grandfather and stolen by Dupont. Around this time, back at Riverdale, Archie successfully stops Dodger and they dedicate the new gym in Fred's honour. Hiram also starts attending the gym, and it turns out he's ill. Veronica also decides to go to New York, where she reunites with her friend Katie Keene, and it's basically just to connect Riverdale with its spin-off Katie Keene. Archie's mum also tries to help Archie with getting a future job. She introduces her Navy friend to Archie, but Archie turns the offer down. Charles meets up with his lover Chick in prison for some reason, and Betty deals with Evelyn Evernever, one of Edgar's minions who was promoting the farm in Season 3. Evelyn is in prison, and Betty is confused as to why her mum got a phone call that basically hypnotized Alice to want to kill Betty. This is due to the trigger word tangerine being said 3 times, and Betty basically goes on a hunt to discover what her dark side is, and it's all the way descending back from the Riverdale Reaper. She flashbacks to her 9-year-old self killing the cat. However, it's all just used to set up the teaser the series is trying to show us, but more on that later. Back to Stonewall now, and Jughead manages to win the writing contract with his story. He wrote a book about a boy near a river, and we've literally just discussed its events. It was all about Jason Blossom. With Jughead supposedly winning, he begins writing the Baxter Brother novel, but Dupont tells the rest of Quill and Skull to kill Jughead so they can gain the contract. Lots of suspicious stuff begins to happen, and so Betty and Alice investigate Quill and Skull's basement while Jughead is working with his classmates. They find Brett has hidden VHS sex tapes, including one of Jughead and Betty. Eventually, it's the end of term before spring break, and the Stonies invite Jughead and his friends to a party. However, this is all because they're preparing to kill Jughead. On the night of the party, Donna distracts Betty by taking her away from Jughead, while Brett leads Jughead into the woods so Joan can hit him with a rock. Donna blows Devil's breath into Betty's face. This makes Betty go into a drunken state so Donna can lead her to Jughead and place the rock in her hand, supposedly framing her for Jughead's death, which is basically what this season has been building up to at this point. However, stupid Joan didn't hit Jughead hard enough, and he actually doesn't die. They didn't even think to check. Anyway, the Stonies tell Archie and Veronica where to look. Archie and Veronica find Betty with a bloody rock in her hand by Jughead's corpse, and it looks like Dark Betty has struck again. Betty wakes up unclear of what has happened, and they manage to wake up Jughead. Betty calls Charles, and Veronica, Archie and Betty carry Jughead to Charles, who has the FBI save him. They burn their clothes, including Jughead's iconic beanie, in a bonfire in the woods, and vow to never speak of the night again. And it is revealed to the town of Riverdale that Jughead has died. However, Jughead is well and truly alive, hiding for 2 weeks in Dilton's bunker. See, I told you it would become important soon. Anyway, for the next 2 weeks, Jughead remains in the bunker to solve the mysteries of the Baxter Brothers novels, while Betty, Veronica, and Archie have to act like he is dead. To make this whole thing convincing, Archie breaks up with Veronica and ends up kissing Betty, which Cheryl records and posts online. However, is this all just an act? Anyway, to make it even more convincing, a few more people find out Jughead is alive. Betty tells Sheriff FP, who sends out a fake search party for Jughead so him and Archie can find his supposed dead corpse. They take him to a hospital, and Jughead puts some makeup on and makes it seem to everyone that they have his dead body. This all goes as far as FP arresting Veronica, Betty, and Archie for their supposed killing of his son. Jellybean, Jughead's sister, also finds out by overhearing a conversation between Charles and Betty. Then, Archie tells his mum just because she's worried for him, and Veronica is forced to tell her evil sister. However, her sister finds out that Donna from Stonewall is the granddaughter of Jane Dallas, who invented the character Tracy True in the Baxter Brothers novels, but more on that later. Eventually, Jughead realizes the whole mystery of committing the perfect murder, and that he was the next victim, and was brought in so Dupont could lure Jughead's grandfather out of hiding so he could also kill him before he reveals any secrets. So, Jughead and Betty surprise the Stonies and Dupont during a lesson. They lock the door and explain everything, then Charles arrests all the Stonies, and Dupont does a tripping and commits suicide by jumping out of the exact same window. Something makes me feel like that window's been smashed a lot. Everything is good, Jughead returns back to Riverdale High, and him and Archie prepare for graduation. However, Donna ends up gaining the Baxter Brothers contract, but Betty blackmails her to give it up as she finds out from Veronica's sister that Donna was only doing it to get revenge on Dupont, who killed her grandma and stealing the character Tracy True. But then, that's not the end of Season 4. Oh no, we gotta go back to those weird VHS tapes that were being sent out. But first, it's the musical episode. Now, I would usually skip past it, but actually, this one annoyingly is kind of important, as much as it pains me to say. Anyway, the kids get annoyed at Mr. Honey because he won't allow Kevin to put on the play Hedwig and the Angry Inch. During the musical, Archie and Betty end up taking their fake romance they had before to cover up Jughead's death a little further. They cheat on Veronica and Jughead and have sex in the bunker, remembering the times they were as kids. However, eventually Betty separates from Archie again as she's worried Jughead will find out, but I mean, of course, they're going to come back together in Season 5. I think it's pretty obvious. Oh, and since there isn't really anywhere else to put this, Archie also decides to join the Navy, and it's revealed that the Navy woman is now together with his mum. In the same musical episode, the gang form a band, and Jughead is given a collection of the tapes. He then plays one and finds a very creepy reenactment of Betty supposedly killing Jughead. The mystery deepens as Mr. Honey ends up going to a VHS place where some of these VHSs are being sold. The gang basically create a hypothetical scenario where they pretend to kill Mr. Honey, and he ends up leaving Riverdale High and moving to Stonewall Prep. Then, Betty and Jughead find more videotapes. They find one showing Clifford killing Jason Blossom, and one of the Black Hood attempting to kill Fred Andrews, and basically going through all of the huge past events in the town. The final one they found is the gang surrounding Mr. Honey and killing them like in their fantasies, and then the season was cut short due to, I'm going to say 2020, but it's back, and hopefully this prepares you for Season 5. My word, guys, that was so long, so much information, but hopefully that gives you some sort of glimpse idea of a full recap of the entire show of Riverdale, and hopefully, guys, that prepares you now for Season 5. Tell me in the comments what your favourite part of the Riverdale show has been over the past 4 seasons, and are you excited for season 5? And as always, make sure you subscribe to the channel because there will be a lot more videos coming once that season comes out. And as always, we've been here on Gate of Theories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.